So in this experiment on photosynthesis, what we'll be doing is looking at the reactants and the products of photosynthesis and determining what happens to photosynthesis when we take away a reactant. So in the equation for photosynthesis, it's carbon dioxide plus water and sunlight gives you glucose and oxygen. We can manipulate that to experiment with in the lab. So what we're going to do is, if you look at these beakers have bicarbonate solution in them, a 1% bicarbonate solution in them. And the bicarbonate is going to take the place of CO2 because we can't use CO2 to do this experiment. So we have the CO2, we have the bicarbonate in these solutions, and we're going to manipulate if we're using bicarbonate or water with no bicarbonate in it, or if there's light or no light. So we can determine if we take out a reactant, what happens? You know, can it work if we don't have CO2 but we have light, or if we have light but no CO2? So if we're going to be working on an experiment, we need to control several factors. For instance, leaf size. Spinach leaves vary in size, and that's not going to work for an experiment. So what we're going to do is take a malt straw, punch down on spinach leaves to get these perfectly round, equal in size discs. And for each beaker, you're going to need 10. So you punch 30 holes down, and then you're going to blow into your syringe, and now you have the discs ready to go. Okay, but at this point the discs are going to float because they're constantly photosynthesizing. So we want to take out the gas that's already accumulated in here by sucking it out through a vacuum with pure deionized water. Okay, so we have our leaf discs, we have our syringe, and there will be a smaller syringe for us to use in that lab. And we're going to take the plunger, place it in. Okay, I might have squished some, it's okay. And I'm going to suck up a bit of water, do a tap like a nurse would, and we're going to get rid of all the possible gases in here. Okay, so I'm going to do another tap, working on getting those gases out. You can see the leaves do have a lot of oxygen in them. Okay, they're all floating the top as much as possible, right? So let's take that out by creating a vacuum, putting our thumb over the opening of the syringe, and take the plunger. And it takes a little force with this large one, but I'm going to pull out the gases, and I'm going to kind of hold it there for a second and release, and then push out the gas, and you can already see them starting to sink. Perfect. But we want to get all of these done. So I'm going to do this 3 to 4 times. You can damage the leaf discs if you do it too much, but holding it is a great idea, and even though this is kind of tough, it works better to hold it, I find. Okay, students might have trouble with this, so maybe having this, a physically stronger person in the lab group do it is helpful. But I like to take this, and so some of them are just holding on because we added gas back in as soon as we let go of the plunger. So I'm just going to do a quick tap and see if a few more sink, and they might not. And it is a good idea maybe to add a few more discs than 30 just in case you want to kind of get this going a little faster, but more sinking as we're waiting here. And I also want to note that we did have to turn down the lights in the lab because photosynthesis would keep occurring at this point in the plungers. I'm going to do this a few more times. And that's going to happen where they shoot out a little bit. Okay? Tap, 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 tap. And most of them at this point have fallen, and I did add a few extra, so I'm going to call that a win. Okay? I think maybe I have 5 still floating. I'm going to be ambitious. Oh, watch out, Megan. Ambitious and try to get them all in there. It's so hard. It's so tough. Okay, that's good. And so what I'm going to do now is release the plunger. Well, I can actually remove some of the water this way. This is the tough part, honestly, is getting them out. And what I have the students do is release them onto a napkin with a little water left. And we can now count them out, okay? So I'm just gonna put a few in each. I'm not gonna count them right now just for expediency. And the ones that float, I'm just gonna take out. Some of them do get oxygen back in. So again, this is kind of a picky thing. So some of them catch it as you're dropping them in. So you can touch them and some of them will start sinking back down. Like this guy might. Yeah, there we go. Okay? So that's how we get set up right now. That's where we should start at 0. Okay. Go to the next thing.